All right, let's dive into a legal question that sounds pretty simple, right? But the answer is, well, it's honestly pretty shocking. We're going to talk about whether you legally have to help someone who's in danger.
So let's get right into it. Most of us, we have this gut feeling about what the right thing to do is. We think we know what the answer should be. But here's the thing. The law, it doesn't always line up with our moral compass.
Let's just put the question out there, plain and simple. Imagine this. You see a total stranger. They're in real trouble. And you could easily help. No risk to yourself at all. So, does the law actually force you to step in?
And here it is, the answer. And it's a bit of a shocker. In most cases, the law says no. You have no legal duty to rescue a stranger. You can literally stand there and do nothing, and legally, you're in the clear. I know, that sounds completely wrong, but there's a really specific legal logic behind it.
So to get why this is the rule, we have to look at a fundamental legal idea. It all boils down to the difference between an act, which is, actually doing something, and an omission, which is failing to do something.
Right, so that key term is omission. It sounds fancy, but it just means a failure to act. Simple as that. It's when you had the chance to do something, but you didn't. And the law views this very, very differently than it views a harmful action.
And this is really the core of it. Think about it like this. If you do something that causes harm, like you accidentally push someone and they get hurt, the law has no problem saying, yep, you're responsible. But if you just fail to act, say you see someone about to walk into an open manhole and you don't say a word, that's where the law gets really, really cautious about holding you liable.
So why? Why is the law so hesitant? Well, the main reason is a really practical one. It's something lawyers call the floodgates argument. Basically, the courts are terrified of what would happen if we could sue people for all the things they didn't do.
Yeah, the fear is that if there was this general rule that you always have to help, the courts would just be completely swamped with lawsuits, and these lawsuits would be a total nightmare to figure out fairly. Let me walk you through a scenario. Imagine a car crash on a busy street. Let's say 20 people see it, and none of them do anything. Now, if the law said they had to help, the victim could turn around and sue all 20 of them. I mean, where do you even start? Who's responsible? The guy right next to the crash? The person across the street? It just opens up a huge can of worms and puts this insane burden on everyone. Okay, but this is a huge but. This do-nothing rule isn't the whole story. It's not absolute. There are some very specific situations where the law flips the script and says, actually, yes, in this case, you absolutely do have a legal duty to step in.
So here's the key takeaway. A duty to act pops up when there's already some kind of connection or responsibility. For example, if you're the one who created the danger in the first place, or if you're in control of the person causing the harm, or maybe you've already promised to help. And then there's the big one, having a special relationship. Think parent-child or a police officer and a citizen. In those cases, failing to act can get you in real legal trouble.
The best way to really wrap your head around this is to look at how it plays out in the real world, in actual court cases. So we're going to look at two really famous cases. They had totally different results, but they both come down to these two ideas, control and foreseeability. Okay, so check this out. In one case, Dorset Yachts, the court said, yes, there was a duty to act. But in the other one, Littlewoods, the answer was no. Figuring out why they're different, well, that's how you really get a handle on this whole rule.
All right, first up is a case called Home Office versus Dorset Yacht. The story is pretty simple. You've got a group of young offenders on a supervised trip. Their guards get careless, the kids escape, and what do? They go and cause a bunch of damage to some yachts.
And the court said the Home Office, the guard's employer, was liable. So why? It really came down to two things. One, the guards had that special relationship we talked about. They were in direct control of the teens. And because of that control, it was totally foreseeable that if they dropped the ball, something bad like this would happen. So their omission, their failure to properly supervise, was directly tied to the damaged yachts.
Okay, now let's compare that to the second case, Smith versus Littlewoods. Here's the deal. A company, Littlewoods, buys an old movie theater. They're going to tear it down, but for now, they just leave it empty. Vandals get in, start a fire, and that fire spreads and damages the building right next door. So the neighbor sues, saying, hey, Littlewoods, you should have secured your property.
But this time, the court said no way. Littlewoods didn't have any kind of special relationship with the Vandals. How could they? The court basically said that forcing them to prevent this would mean requiring constant vigilance against every possible bad thing that could happen. And that's just an impossible, unreasonable burden to put on people. It's a perfect example of that floodgates idea we talked about.
So, where does that leave us? Well, we end up with this really clear line that the law draws. It's a line designed to be practical, to stop the legal system from collapsing under an impossible burden. But, and this is the uncomfortable part, that legal line doesn't always match up with what we feel is morally right.
And that really brings us to the final question, doesn't it? The law might give you a pass for not helping a stranger, but that doesn't really settle the ethical debate. It's this amazing intersection of what's practical for the law and what our own conscience tells us. So I'll leave you with this. The law draws its line, but where do you draw yours?